I knew something was off when the HR girl wouldn't make eye contact with me in the elevator. You know that look people give when they know a dog's about to get put down but they don't want to be the one holding the leash? Yeah, that. She stood there in her itchy blazer, clutching her little iPad like it was a Bible, eyes fixed on the floor numbers blinking upward, never once meeting mine. We passed my floor. She didn't say a word. When we stopped at 16, the executive floor, I actually chuckled. Oh, so it's going to be that kind of day. They had the nerve to call it a check-in. Room B2, same room we use for onboarding interns and those corporate training sessions where a PowerPoint tells you not to embezzle or stab your coworkers. The door was already cracked open. I walked in and there he was, sitting smug with his ankle on his knee like he'd just invented logistics, Marcus Vale, new VP of strategy who probably couldn't spell fiduciary without autocorrect. Fresh from some acquisition in Texas, brought in to modernize Lexridge. His only real accomplishment so far was swapping the coffee brand in the break room to some sludge he claimed was artisanal. HR's head of people, Laura, was sitting beside him, her smile as tight as the ponytail strangling the last of her hope. She gestured to the chair like I was some contestant on The Price is Right. I sat. Karen, Marcus started, tone syrupy like this was going to end with a hug. Thanks for coming in on short notice. I didn't say a word, just nodded. I already knew. I've seen enough vultures circling a body to know when it's my turn on the slab. We've been doing some organizational restructuring, Laura jumped in, and unfortunately, your position is being eliminated. Effective immediately. She pushed a folder toward me, glossy with the company's new navy and gray logo. Inside was a severance package, 3 months' pay, contingent on signing a non-disparagement clause. I smiled, a soft, unreadable smile, the kind that made Marcus shift slightly in his chair. Now, if you've made it this far and you're enjoying the tale of corporate stupidity unfolding here, do me one favor. Tap that like button and hit subscribe. 90% of y'all listen to these stories without subscribing, and it really helps the team keep spinning these delicious little webs of revenge. Plus, I promise it only gets juicier from here. Anyway, back to my polite execution. Marcus went on to explain how the company was evolving, how they valued my contributions, how this was nothing personal. Which, by the way, is the corporate version of it's not you. It's me before they ghost you and start dating your intern. The man had the audacity to say I should be proud of my legacy. He used that word legacy like I was some retired quarterback or an old family dog they were shipping off to a farm upstate. I didn't flinch. I didn't cry. I just nodded along and signed where they asked me to. That smile never left my face. They had no idea, no clue that just last quarter I'd revised the compliance matrix for all federal contracts. No clue that Clause 14.2b, the one I personally redlined after legal skipped their own damn review, explicitly required my signature on any logistics contract exceeding $250 million. And tomorrow was the finalization meeting for a $500 million government defense logistics contract. $500 million, my signature. Legally required. Not optional, not symbolic. Required. They didn't read the clause. Hell, I doubt Marcus even knew we had clauses. They handed me a cardboard box, told me security would escort me down. And just like that, 20 years of institutional memory was reduced to a half-hearted handshake and a parking validation sticker. As I left the room, Marcus stood and said, "No hard feelings, yeah?" I turned to him, still smiling, and said, "None at all." But inside, oh, sweetheart, I was already rewriting his exit memo in my head. The walk back to my office felt like a funeral march, only I wasn't the one in the casket. That would come later, for Marcus. Behind me, I could hear the stiff footsteps of a junior HR rep whose name I didn't know and didn't care to learn. Poor kid was probably 2 months out of college and still thought workplace betrayal came with warning signs. She kept glancing around like I was about to go postal with a letter opener, as if I hadn't already made peace with this 4 chess moves ago. I passed the product team's pod first. Jenna looked up, mouth slightly open, one hand frozen mid-type. Then Dev, who literally pulled his headphones off like he misheard the world. I offered a half smile and kept moving. No grand speech, no paper-throwing tantrum, just the sound of my heels echoing across the floor and the sudden hush that followed me like a ghost through the bullpen. My nameplate still read Karen S., Langford VP Compliance and Contract Strategy, been bolted to that frosted glass wall for a decade. I paused to look at it. 2 decades at Lexridge, 10M and a deals, 4 international expansions, 7 different CEOs, and now I was being escorted out like I'd stolen staplers and secrets. I walked in, turned to the HR shadow behind me and said, "I'll only need 10 minutes. She nodded like she'd practiced it in the mirror that morning. Inside, the office still smelled like the jasmine diffuser I kept hidden behind the bookshelves. HR had banned personal scents after someone's boyfriend had a lavender allergy. I sat down at my desk and opened my laptop, which they hadn't remembered to deactivate yet. Amateurs. Absolute amateurs. I didn't delete a thing. I didn't wipe drives. I didn't forward files to my Gmail. I didn't need to. Everything that mattered had already been stitched into the systems weeks ago. My fingerprints were all over Clause 14.2. I'd buried it into the compliance structure so deep it practically had its own pulse. I opened Outlook, clicked New Email, and typed in my personal address. Subject line, Clause 14.2 signature requirement. Then I blind copied my lawyer. Damn good one. Divorce shark turned corporate watchdog. The kind who could weaponize footnotes. Attached were 4 PDFs, my original contract with Lexridge, the updated compliance protocols I drafted after the last audit, the contract review timeline showing my name as final signatory, and the memo I'd sent legal last month warning them not to change protocols until after the Q4 federal review. Each file labeled dated and time-stamped. I hit send. Then I sat back, cracked my knuckles, and watched the loading bar spin as the email vanished into the ether like a grenade with the pin pulled. I closed the laptop, unplugged the monitor, methodically began packing the items I actually cared about. One framed photo of my dog, a coaster my daughter made me in kindergarten that still said world's best boss, and the brass paperweight shaped like a ship's wheel that old man Lexridge himself gave me back when we were still shipping fertilizer and praying for contracts. I left the awards, the plaques, the company-issued iPad, even my Lexridge Systems hoodie. No point clinging to decorations in a burning house. By the time I zipped up my tote bag, the HR rep was trying to act casual, scrolling her phone like she wasn't silently counting down until she could report I hadn't barricaded myself in. I turned off the lights, took one last look at the view. Lexridge's skyline offices overlooked a construction site that had never finished. A perfect metaphor. And then I walked out. No drama, no tears, but if anyone had looked closely, they'd have seen something in my eyes. Not defeat, just calculation. By 3:45 that same afternoon, Marcus Vale was already measuring the window for new blinds like he was redecorating his teenage son's dorm room. According to what I heard later from the interns, God bless their group chats, he waltzed out of the boardroom with all the subtlety of a frat boy who just stole a rival's mascot. Finally trimming the fat, he told one of the finance guys, "Deadweight had to go. We're streamlining." Deadweight, that's what he called me. 2 decades of contracts, government negotiations, foreign compliance frameworks, and merger oversight, and this Ken doll with a jawline full of entitlement and a PowerPoint addiction boiled it all down to deadweight. I had my feet up on the Armin by then, laptop open at home, cup of mint tea in hand. Remote access window still active. Turns out, IT hadn't gotten around to deactivating my credentials. Shocker, so I watched him. Watched as he walked into his new office, looked around like he was entering a sacred tomb he didn't understand, then cracked his knuckles and began marking his territory. First thing he did, rolled in a hideous ergonomic gaming chair. Neon green, looked like a transformer vomited on it. He dumped my brown leather one, the one with the lumbar support I had custom fitted after the 2012 Compliance Summit, into the hallway like it was covered in lice. Then the nameplate, unscrewed mine with a Swiss Army knife and slapped on a plastic one that said Marcus Vale VP Strategy. He didn't even center it. I clicked into the security dashboard, still had clearance, still had access. Watched the name change populate across the directory, saw the new voicemail greeting uploaded. "Hey, this is Marcus Vale, VP of Strategy here at Lexridge Systems. If you're calling about compliance, legal, or contract execution, we're working on a new direction. Leave a message. New direction. Right." I checked the change logs. He hadn't even looked at the project queue. Hadn't opened the federal review schedule. Wasn't even in the shared compliance folders. But he had requested a meeting with facilities to refresh the energy in the executive wing. By refresh, he meant repaint the walls a shade called Victory Beige. You can't make this crap up. I watched him adjust the lighting in the room. He preferred blue-toned LEDs naturally and unbox a series of sports memorabilia frames. Football jerseys, some signed bat, a framed quote that said, "Disrupt or die." The man ran on LinkedIn fumes. I sat there, watching it all through my remote view, chewing the corner of a biscotti and letting the sarcasm boil slowly under my ribcage. The office that Karen built was now a monument to mediocrity. My bookshelf had held law volumes, procurement manuals, and a signed copy of the government contract clause book I co-wrote in 2017. He replaced it with books titled Crush It, Scaling the Hustle, and something co-authored by a guy with frosted tips. My sarcasm had nowhere to go, so I opened Slack, still logged in, and changed my status to out of office permanently watching. He didn't notice. Why would he? He was too busy celebrating. Called in the marketing team to discuss his rebrand initiative. Told HR he wanted to host a team-building offsite in Cabo. Asked if someone could design him a new email signature with an animated logo. He thought the crown was his now, that the kingdom had been cleared of old queens. What he didn't know, what none of them knew, was that the keys to the vault still rattled in my pocket, and I was already halfway through my own little countdown. My lawyer, Alyssa Duval, called me from a rooftop bar somewhere in downtown Cleveland. Could hear the jazz music behind her muted chatter, clinking glasses. "Karen," she said after one sip of what I imagine was her usual gin and something. I read it 3 times. Clause 14.2b is still active. They're absolutely screwed. I leaned back in my patio chair, legs crossed, dog curled at my feet, and smiled into the dusk. Not a vindictive smile, just the kind you give when the universe sets the dinner table and hands you the carving knife. Still names me as required signatory of record? I asked, feigning curiosity. Yup, Alyssa said, now munching on a breadstick. Any federal logistics contract above $250 million requires your review, authorization, and signature. It's in black and white. You even initialed the margin. They can't touch the contract without you, Karen. You're the keystone. Keystone. God, I loved lawyers with a flair for drama. I pulled up the federal contract schedule on my tablet. There it was, clear as daylight. Project 764A, Defense Logistics Supply Optimization. Value $503.7 million. Final review meeting tomorrow, 10:30 a.m. Executive conference room, Lexridge HQ. I could picture it already. The long glass table. The stiff suits from the Department of Defense. The color-coded binders. Marcus Vail sitting at the head like a peacock in heat, convinced he'd close the biggest deal of the quarter before lunchtime. Without me, not a chance in hell. See, the contract wasn't just numbers and terms. It was layered with federal compliance stipulations, licensing checkpoints, and risk mitigation clauses I personally engineered after a 2018 audit disaster nearly cost Lexridge its clearance. It was my blueprint. I built the damn scaffolding it stood on. And according to Appendix G, which I had bookmarked on page 87, any change in signatory required a 60-day vetting period and a federal background check. So even if Marcus wanted to appoint himself or someone else, it wouldn't be valid. Not in time, not tomorrow. I pulled up the onboarding forms from when Marcus was hired. No background check filed. No compliance clearance. Just an email from HR saying, excited to have you on board. Let us know your lunch preferences. It would have been funny if it weren't so tragically predictable. I forwarded the relevant clause excerpts to Alyssa with a note, just in case someone starts lawyering late. Then I went back to the internal portal. Still had access. My name, Karen S. Langford, was right there under authorized signatories. The IT team must have been busy trying to install Marcus's third smart monitor. What I felt in that moment wasn't glee, wasn't rage. It was validation. Cold, solid, immovable. For 20 years, I'd been treated as the quiet one, the background operator, the spreadsheet whisperer. People forgot that behind every polished quarterly report and crisis-averted audit was a woman hunched over legal printouts at 11 p.m. eating stale pretzels and redlining loopholes that could bankrupt the company. They forgot, but the paper didn't. I poured myself another cup of tea, set a 7 a.m. alarm, and wrote one line in my planner under tomorrow's date, 10:30 a.m. Watch it fall apart. And then I circled it, twice. At exactly 8:17 a.m., my inbox pinged with a link to a public-facing Zoom webinar titled Lexridge Systems Q4 Federal Contract Finalization Prep. It had been forwarded by an old assistant who clearly hadn't realized I'd been escorted out of the building less than 24 hours earlier. Bless her heart, the meeting was scheduled for 9 a.m. Marcus was hosting. Naturally, I clicked. They didn't password protect it. I watched as tiles started popping up like pimples before prom, business ops, logistics, 2 guys from legal who looked permanently undercaffeinated, and 3 stern-looking consultants from Lockworth Defense Solutions, each wearing the same tired navy blazer and blinking like they hadn't seen sunlight in days. And then came Marcus, full screen, grinning like he'd just been told he was up for Best Actor at a company that doesn't make movies. Morning, team, he beamed. Big day tomorrow. Just wanted to get everyone aligned, make sure we're buttoned up on all ends before the government folks come in. We are this close to locking down the biggest logistics contract in Lexridge history. He gave them a double thumbs up like he was hosting a 3rd-grade talent show. No one asked where I was. Not a single "where's Karen?" Not even a polite head tilt in the shape of my name. I watched as he clicked through a PowerPoint that wasn't even in compliance format. Half the footnotes were cut off. He flipped through budget tables, vendor breakdowns, and key performance indexes like he was speed dating the data. At one point, he called the compliance documentation a formality and suggested they go light on the jargon during the federal presentation. One of the Lockworth consultants, bless his brave little soul, raised his hand and said, just to confirm, is the final signatory cleared on this? Marcus didn't even blink. Yeah, I've got it handled, he said with the confidence of a man who thinks procurement protocol is a coffee blend. I clicked over to the clause list again. Paragraph 7 of Appendix D, required signatory, Karen S. Langford. No substitutions allowed without 60-day federal preclearance. I sipped my coffee and stared at his smug little Zoom square. Legal, to their credit, did try to bring up something about clearance requirements. I saw the hesitation in Tim's face. He's one of the old-school contract lawyers who actually reads beyond the executive summary. But before he could finish his sentence, Marcus cut him off. I'll loop in compliance if needed. Let's not waste energy on red tape. We've got momentum here. Momentum. That was the word he used. Like this was some text pitch in a barn somewhere, and not a binding government deal that could tank a company's federal standing. The call ended at 9:46 a.m. Marcus clapped his hands at the camera and said, "Let's land this plane tomorrow, people." I closed the tab and stared at the blank screen. You ever watch someone cook a beautiful meal using drain cleaner instead of olive oil? That's what this was. They were seasoning the destruction with ego and garnishing it with oversight. Legal hadn't even reviewed the clause yet. No one had read my memos. No one had rechecked the authorization hierarchy. They were flying blind, high on buzzwords and scented candles from the VP's office. I sat back and whispered to no one, let them cook. Because tomorrow, when the government reps walked into that boardroom looking for the one signature that could legally greenlight $500 million and realized it was missing, well, that kitchen's gonna catch fire. By noon, the documents were hot off the printer, thick stacks of contract binders with those telltale red signature flags poking out like lipstick smears on a crime scene. One for Lexridge, one for Lockworth, one for the Department of Defense. One to frame, maybe, once Marcus had his victory speech engraved on brass. I knew this because Gina, a junior analyst from procurement, sent a snap of them to her office bestie. Her caption said, "Guess who gets to babysit the gold bricks for tomorrow's big win?" #VPS ego diet. It didn't take much digging to find the snap. I still had access to our shadow Slack, the one the interns ran for venting and memes. Someone uploaded it there with the caption, "Signed and sealed baby." I zoomed in on the image. First signature line, Marcus Vale, Vice President, Strategic Operations. Second signature line, printed clean and sharp beneath it. Karen S. Langford, Authorized Compliance Officer Government Contracts. Right there, in bold, I actually laughed out loud. Not a cruel laugh, just that quiet, incredulous chuckle you give when the House of Cards builder proudly places the final card, and it's a slice of deli meat. Apparently, no one had updated the templates, or the CRM, or the workflow authorization metadata, because even the contract document itself still knew I was the gatekeeper. I imagine the prep team gathered around the big conference room table that afternoon, all dressed in suits a half size too tight, sweating slightly under the weight of $500 million in federal promise. Marcus probably stood at the head like a pastor with a Bible and a Bluetooth headset. Gina, bless her Gen Z heart, noticed the detail first. Isn't Karen Langford gone?" she asked, half-whisper, pointing at the signature block. I would have paid actual money to see his face. Marcus, never one to acknowledge cracks in his little porcelain universe, apparently brushed it off. "Doesn't matter," he said with a casual wave of the hand. "I'm acting head of compliance now, acting head. As if title inflation could bypass federal authorization systems, as if his presence in my office somehow conjured my clearance into his bloodstream. No one challenged him. Not yet. They were all too dazzled by the finish line, drunk on metrics and projections. They didn't stop to consider that signature line on a federal contract wasn't just a formality. It was a binding act, an identity, a clearance code. A legal authorization built on background checks, certification renewals, and in my case, 20 years of built-up federal trust. I clicked into the compliance platform and refreshed the digital ledger. My signatory token still pinged as active. My unique approval ID was still tied to all federal-facing contract portals. The audit logs hadn't even been updated to reflect a transition request, because no one had submitted one, not legal, not HR, and certainly not Marcus Momentum Vale. They were running on fumes, and the dashboard, it was blinking red. The government signature portal would reject anything that didn't pass compliance checksum. That included a VP's Sharpie scribble on the dotted line where my name still lived. They didn't know yet, but the fall was coming, and I had a front row seat. The boardroom was set like a wedding for corporate narcissists. Every surface gleamed. Bottled water lined up like soldiers. Binders centered with surgical precision. Someone even had the gall to arrange a fruit tray in the shape of the Lexridge logo. Pineapple for the L, strawberries for the S. I wasn't there. Of course, not physically. But I knew the room well. Spent enough hours in it explaining clause architecture to impatient men in overpriced suits to visualize every fluorescent flicker, every temperature war between the thermostat and the frozen stiff interns trying to please everyone. At 10:28 a.m., the guests arrived. 2 representatives from the Department of Defense, both former logistics officers turned government liaisons, walked in with hard faces and harder briefcases. The third joined via secured video feed, patched into the wall monitor. Marcus, I'm told, greeted them with the energy of a game show host, waved toward the coffee station, made a joke about how we've got more caffeine than strategy today, and sat at the head of the table like he was about to win something. They opened the binders. The men from the DoD flipped quickly, seasoned eyes scanning for the big flags, procurement terms, delivery schedules, audit clauses, red line revisions. Then they paused, page 3, the signature block. "Excuse me," one of them said, LT Colonel turned Contracting Officer Thomas Breck, a man who once threatened to blacklist a vendor for using the wrong font in a declaration page. He tapped the page with a blunt index finger. Where's Karen Langford? Marcus, who'd probably been practicing this moment in the mirror for weeks, leaned back and said smoothly, "Karen's no longer with the company. I'm heading compliance now. Everything's still good to go." Silence. Thomas didn't blink. Just flip the binder to Appendix D, found paragraph 7, and read aloud. All federal contracts exceeding $250 million require signatory execution by the authorized compliance officer listed in Appendix F. Substitution or delegation of this role is not permitted without 60-day notice and federal clearance approval. He closed the binder. Then this is canceled. That's when the oxygen got sucked out of the room. I imagine Marcus blinked twice, the way dumb men do when their internal operating system hits a logic error. He probably looked at legal, Tim or Ashley or whoever was dumb enough to sit closest, and waited for one of them to bail him out. But they didn't, because they just realized it too. I know this because at exactly 10:35 a.m., an internal message lit up the compliance channel like a Christmas tree on fire. Did anyone actually review 14.2b before terminating Karen? Another message, a second later. Who approved this without checking the signatory? And then a third, colder one from General Counsel herself. Pause all communications. Not reschedule until I've spoken to the board. Back in the boardroom, the rep stood. The duty guy on the monitor said nothing, just ended the call. Marcus stammered something about transitional oversight and interim authority, but his voice cracked on authority, which is ironic considering he'd just lost all of it. Nobody yelled, nobody threw a chair. The silence did the heavy lifting. Cold, embarrassing, unavoidable. They finally saw it. I wasn't just a signature. I was the spine. And without it, the whole damn deal folded like a cheap beach chair in a hurricane. The emergency board meeting was called for 3:00 p.m., but the shouting started by 2:47. From what my inside sources told me, namely a shell-shocked junior exec named Landon who live-texted the whole meltdown to his fiancée and accidentally CC'd me instead of her, the mood in the boardroom was part funeral, part firing squad. General Counsel arrived with her lipstick smudged and a legal binder clutched like a flotation device. Her usual poise had evaporated. She walked straight to the front of the room, didn't bother with small talk, and slapped the contract binder on the table so hard it made the water bottles jump. "This deal is dead," she said. The board went silent. Then HR chimed in. Of course it was HR, Laura, the same smiling executioner who'd handed me the severance folder like it was a gift basket, was suddenly stammering like a kid who forgot their book report. We were told her role had no critical dependencies," she said, eyes darting to Marcus. "We were under the impression it was purely operational." Marcus didn't flinch. He leaned back in his chair like a man who thought confidence could still save him and said, "Karen was blocking innovation. She resisted every process upgrade we proposed. We needed someone willing to modernize, to disrupt the old systems." Someone at the far end of the table muttered she was the system. The board chair, Alina Trask, steel-haired and terrifying in heels, finally spoke. "Why didn't you read the clause?" That sentence landed like a guillotine. No one answered. General Counsel slowly sat down, her voice suddenly quiet. She was the only one authorized for federal clearance, she said. Background check took 6 months. Renewal every 2 years. Security review every audit. She was in the loop with DOD, DHS, and Treasury. No one else was even listed in the system yet. Another board member asked, so she knew. General Counsel nodded. Oh, she absolutely knew. Alina turned to Marcus. "And you fired her?" Marcus straightened his tie and attempted one last Hail Mary. "I was told she was obstructive, set in her ways, hard to work with." That someone down the table actually laughed. Not a full laugh, just a sharp, stunned puff of air. Because everyone in that room knew what had just happened. They traded a vault for a vending machine. One board member asked how soon the contract could be salvaged. General Counsel said it would take weeks, maybe months, to get someone else cleared, and that was if the DOD didn't blacklist Lexridge from future bids due to procedural failure. "Do you realize," she said, "you lost $500 million because someone wanted a different office chair?" No one spoke after that. Marcus went pale, HR went quiet, and Alina just stared at the binder in front of her like it was a loaded gun someone forgot to lock. What I felt wasn't joy. It wasn't even anger anymore. It was justice, ice cold and patient. The kind that doesn't need applause. The kind that walks barefoot through the wreckage and lets the silence explain everything. He didn't need me in that room. I'd already written the final sentence. I never walked back into that building. Didn't need to. The next day, while they were still combing through the ashes of their own arrogance, my lawyer, Alyssa, walked in wearing dark glasses and a silk scarf like a villain from an old courtroom drama. She didn't smile, didn't blink, didn't ask for water. Just placed a single envelope on the boardroom table and said, "This is Miss Langford's invoice." Inside, 3 pages. Page 1, formal notice of her availability for emergency consulting services. Page 2, wire instructions. Page 3, a highlighted excerpt from my original contract. Clause 22.1a. It read, "In the event of role termination without a transitional period of no less than 45 business days, the departing employee shall be engaged as a paid consultant at 3 times the final monthly salary for a minimum of 18 months. Engagement is not optional. Mandatory consultancy. Triple pay. 18 months minimum. They'd fired me on a Wednesday with no handoff, no transition file, no clearance downgrade, no continuity protocol. The clause triggered the moment HR's little clipboard parade escorted me to the elevator. Lissa didn't even wait around. She slid the invoice across the table and said, "You'll find the retainer amount has already been wired," then turned and walked out like she was late for brunch with Karma. I later heard from Landon, still shaken, still typing with both thumbs, that the board just sat there, motionless, staring at the clause like it was written in Latin. Marcus had already been escorted out that morning, no fanfare, no last speech, not even time to clear his new desk chair. HR's Laura resigned effective immediately. The contract itself remained unsigned. By then, the DoD had already flagged Lexridge for compliance failure and sent a formal notice delaying negotiations until Q2. No guarantee of return. That's 3/4 of projected revenue flushed down the platinum-plated drain Marcus had installed in the executive restroom. Meanwhile, I was sitting in an Adirondack chair by Lake Erie. Dog at my feet, phone on silent, mug of spiced tea steaming gently in my hands. The wind picked up a little, rustling the pages of a paperback I'd been meaning to finish for years. My bank app pinged softly. Retainer received. 18 months, triple rate, no office politics, no Marcus. Just me, my piece, and a paper trail so tight it could strangle a CFO. They handed me a box. I handed them a clause, and I know which one weighed more. You're the real MVPs of the office jungle. Thanks for watching. Smash that subscribe button, or the coffee pot might just forget your next brew.